And we'll wait just one more minute and then we'll get started. All right, Will, I will go ahead and hand it over to you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome everyone today to today's webinar brought to you by the Glass Recycling Coalition. We're going to take a look at the Coalition's certification program for our material recovery facilities, some review of those that have gotten it, why you would want to do that, and how to go about it. Our speakers today, we will hear from Grayson Rutherford from Red Wave. Grayson is currently sales engineer for Red Wave. It's a U.S. subsidiary. He has Red Wave is an optical sorter manufacturer and plant builder based in Austria. Grayson's been with the company for 3 years now and handles northern United States and Canada, primarily for scrap metal. He started handling glass projects in 2022. Previously, he worked for EMR in New Jersey, one of the largest privately owned scrap recyclers in the world. Grayson comes from a family of recyclers with a mother who worked in plastic, a father in lead acid batteries, and an uncle and grandfather in scrap metal. He holds his bachelor's in mechanical engineering from the University of Alabama. Our other speaker today is my good friend, Ben Pedigo. Ben joined Rumpke Waste and Recycling in 1993 and works as Corporate Recycling Operations Coordinator. Ben works with Rumpke sales, municipal contracts, and operations teams in Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, and West Virginia to secure new business for Rumpke material recovery facilities. Ben has been the Ohio representative for the Ohio Valley Water Sanitation Commission, or SANCO, if I've got that right. Yes. He is for their Public Information Advisory Committee. He's done that since 1990 and was instrumental in establishing the Ohio River Sweep Project, along with staff from the Ohio Department of Natural Resources and SWANCO. This interstate cleanup event covers the entire length of the Ohio River and has collected more than 20,000 tons of trash since the program started in 1989. Ben earned his bachelor's degree in English from Vanderbilt University in Nashville, and he resides in Southern Ohio, where he is an active participant in his local community. I'm Will Sager. I've been with CERTIC for 13 years, and prior to that, I had 20 years running local government waste management and recycling programs, and it is my pleasure to be with you today. Just a little about the GRC. If we get the next slide up, please. Thank you. We want to really focus today on our MRF certification committee, but the mission for the GRC is stated there. GRC was formed in 2016 to come together to look at all components of the value chain, from all the way from generation to use again and back into retail, to look at that value chain and to remove the barriers and build better opportunities for recycling glass. One of the things that was determined early on in the project or operations of the GRC was that we needed to improve the quality of material that is coming out of our material recovery facilities. And from that came the MRF certification committee that we will talk about today. The members of the committee are listed there on the screen. All of these members have been working on this committee now for several years, and we will go through those activities. With that, I'm going to hand it off to Grayson to dig deeper into what our challenges are.
So, thank you, Will, for that introduction. So as we all know, glass is a very challenging material to work with. So challenging, in fact, that not every MRF in the country will even accept glass. And there's a couple key challenges that are involved in that. The main one is that it's a heavy material, it's abrasive, and it breaks really easily. So transporting it to and from locations can be a bit challenging. Collecting it in the first place is also a challenge. And because of these physical properties of glass, the MRFs that do take in glass normally do a simple processing to it that produces a quality that's not so great. Just because of the upstream processes, a lot of stuff ends up going through the glass breaking process. And at that point, you just have to find a way to get rid of it. So there's usually a middleman involved, such as a glass beneficiation plant or secondary processor who takes in MRF glass and process it further, gets rid of the contaminants, and then turns it into a cullet material. And then that is what is ready to go to an end market. And then depending on your geographical area, the end markets may not be near to you. So depending on where you are, there's different specs of glass that are needed for those end markets. And so if the closest plant to you is far away, someone has to pay for that transportation to get rid of this material. So because of all of these challenges, there's a couple of environmental results. Like I just said, some MRFs don't even accept glass. That means a large percentage of curbside glass can be sent to landfill. Certain cities just send it there to use as a daily cover, or they just have to pay to dispose of it. And as a result of that, the environmental implication is that the embedded energy in glass is lost, which means all of that glass that's going to landfill, all that energy that it took to make all of those bottles and containers is lost to the landfill. It's no longer being recirculated, and the energy required to take a glass bottle and recycle it and turn it back into a glass bottle through furnaces is much less than making new bottles out of raw materials. So all of that energy that was used previously has to be reused again. And another one is that a lot of these communities will be missing out on diversion goals. A lot of municipalities are starting to say we need to send less material to landfill. One of those materials is glass, but because of all these challenges, sometimes they can't be met at the current time. So I think I'm going to
Thank you, Grayson. Ben, if you would review the resources that GRC has for our MRFs.
Yeah, will do. Good to be with you all here. And, the Glass Recycling Coalition, I just want to encourage everyone to just get on that website. I mean, as Grayson points out, single stream MRF have a challenge on producing and cleaning a glass product prior to sending to a beneficiation system. So, we do have some challenges, but, we've got great opportunities. And our intent, excuse me, is a collaboration to overcome these challenges. Just wanted to point out the Glass Recycling Coalition website has a benefits calculator for potential recovery, really take a deep dive on just how much glass could we get out of our MRF shed. Decision-making tools, very interesting on, challenges that may come up, how to overcome those challenges. Grayson mentioned that we'll talk about the glass recycling map, understanding in markets, taking a visual on where markets are located. It's interesting, Will, that we look at commodities, the value of commodities, but I think at the end of the day with glass, we really need to take a deep dive on the landfill avoidance. Grayson, you make a great point about the diversion on glass. We're seeing in curbside programs that by weight glass makes up, 15 to 20% of what's going into a curbside or a drop-off program. And communities that are looking for a significant diversion, it's just essential that glass is part of that process. You know, as we kind of do a deep dive into the MRF certification process, that's kind of where we're going. Just wanted to point out that there are many aspects of glass usage. And you'll see when you look at the when you go to the Glass Recycling Coalition website, you'll see a number of end markets, and those are recognized. So, you may be in an area that, is very close to some new innovative aspects of handling glass. And so, when you take a look at your MRF, these are things that you will be able to you'll be able to see on that Glass Recycling Coalition MRF certification. And the goal is to have recovered glass as a raw material for bottled glass, but there is a hierarchy. So there are tiers on this, and with locations, in market locations being critical. This is an important point. Why is certification important? At Rumpke, our team continues to look, and I know that MRFs do this as well with all commodities. We're assessing how we deal with glass, how we deal with PET, plastics, how we're dealing with aluminum cans. So it's a continual process. And Will, I remember a couple of weeks ago, you made a good point about, issues with confidence. We want the public to be confident about recycling infrastructure. And so, we're taking a look at recycling infrastructure through this glass certification program. It's very important, not just for glass, but for all commodities. So this can, certification, as pointed out, very, very positive things. But, just to look at your MRF, I think this will be this is a great tool for MRFs to take a look at, just what are other MRFs doing. I think there's more of a collaboration now with recycling, with MRFs to, look at best practices. So I think it's a great program. So let's get into this certification overview. What we want to do is through this process, and I think I'm gonna do I hand this over to Grayson? Grayson, I think you're probably better.
Yeah, we're going to hand it to Grayson, but Ben, I just really want to emphasize too that you brought up the point that there's skepticism on our recycling programs, and it's not specific to any material, but just we've experienced a lot of bad press, and really it's unjust because we've got strong markets for materials. Prices do go up and down a lot, and that's a struggle, but the materials consistently are consumed and made into new products, and recycling is actually functioning very well in spite of obstacles that we have. So this certification program adds credibility to our public image for the collection program, as well as for the activities that the MRF has. So it's more than just the MRF that's here, but I'll quit digressing and give it to Grayson to talk about cleaning up this material.
Yeah, so thank you. So glass, when it leaves the MRF, it has to go somewhere. Usually it ends up at a beneficiation plant where it's graded on several different key factors, like how much fines are in there, the undersized material, what is non-glass that's in there, so any paper or plastics or dirt. There's potentials for metals to be in there, all sorts of things. So depending on what your upstream process looks like will kind of dictate what your glass looks like at the end. And so if someone out there is wanting to create a cleaner glass product that they can, transport off the site more economically, there's some downstream options that can be considered. So on the far left is the typical glass breaker screen that pretty much every MRF I've ever been to that takes in glass has. So as the single stream material moves through the plant, you kind of isolate materials here and there, and then what is glass ends up on this glass breaker. So it's just spinning axles with these metal discs. The glass hits it, it breaks the glass, and it kind of sucks it down under, and then it can be transported to a bunker. Now that physical action also means that contaminants get pulled down with it. So the last sample that I took, there were a lot of brittle plastics like solo cups and pieces of Tupperware that get kind of cracked, and then they get sucked down in because at that point they get kind of flat and they can fall through. Papers, just it kind of mulches up and it can bunch down in there. Shredded paper just easily can fall through there too. And a little bit of metals, some flattened cans or tin can lids, UBCs, that sort of thing, they can get sucked down in there too. And the way that MRFs have been built for a long time, sometimes this is the only process that is in the plant to get glass and separate it as a commodity. But as I just said, you have to send it to a beneficiator who will grade it, and then usually the MRF will have to pay a fee to dump it off. So in order to avoid those fees and make a cleaner glass product, there's a couple things that MRFs can do on their property to not make it a cullet, not make it an in-use type of glass, but just cleaner so that the beneficiator has less work to do and can recycle it easier. Seeing things like a sizing screen with the lights removal on the top left. I believe that is from Machine X. It's a simple trommel screen. It sizes the material. You get coarse glass on one side, you get some smaller stuff, and then it has a vacuum system that sucks out light material like that shredded paper, dust, sand, fines, things like that. Zigzag separator on the top right is also an easy tool. It just glass feeds in, a fan circulates air up, it hits all these metal points in a zigzag fashion to break up the material, and it loosens up those lights and the lights can get sucked off. Something like a finger screen on the bottom is easy to get coarse glass out. So if you see that the glass coming out of your breaker screen, you got really big, ends of bottles and bottle necks and things like that. It's easy to let that fall over the fingers and let everything smaller go through. And then the highest option would be to use some sort of optical sortation where you let your glass screen go through, and using sensors, it can sense whether something is plastic, whether something is metal, anything that's not clear would be considered like a ceramic, stone, or porcelain, and all of those can get ejected. And depending on what your stream looks like and what you need it to look like coming out the back end, MRFs can implement any one of these processes and you get a cleaner, more valuable glass at the end of the day. And there's a couple solution providers at the bottom. Now, so in order for you to make an investment decision for what to do with your MRF, you have to understand your geographical location. You got to understand where your end markets are and what they will be looking for in glass. So this is a map that's available on the GRC website. You can filter out any of these things. So this is a map of all the MRFs in America that accept glass, glass container manufacturers, glass processors, fiberglass plants, and just like a hodgepodge of other glass markets. So depending on where you are, you need to know where your glass could be going. And then you can reach out to them and say they need a certain spec, and then you can figure out what to do with your material to meet those specs. Can you go to the next slide? Yep. And this is just a filter of all of the MRFs. So all the purple dots, they're all the ones that accept glass. And all of these trophies are the ones that have currently gone through the certification process with the GRC. And I, for one, and obviously all of us, we'd love to see more of these purple dots be turned into trophies.
Thank you, Grayson. Ben's going to take us into the certification process, how it works, how you can get there with your facility or encourage the facility serving your community to do so. And I'd like to remind everyone that if you do have any questions along the way, please use the question option there, and I will get your questions to our panelists at the end of the slides. Ben?
Thank you, Will. We want to develop a better understanding on how to improve product quality for end markets. You know, when you think about glass, there are some things that happen, you know, glass breaks. Grayson brought out, you know, scalping screens, those kinds of things that are just, you know, part of the process. But messaging on to the public about how to prepare commodities, you know, very, very important component. And actually, just on the front end, the communications and the GRC has some very good communications tools to to let the public know in markets for glass, those kinds of things. You know, it's a very transparent. I think recycling in general is very transparent. We all, you know, we've identified, you know, Grayson, the map identified locations of end users of, you know, glass processing systems. So, you know, MRFs are always with every commodity in the business of evaluating the effectiveness of their systems. And so this is just part, you know, this is part, important component of that. As we get into the application process, I want to encourage, and you can go to the next slide. I just want to encourage the folks participating in the webinar just to get on this GRC website, and you can scroll down and you can see very clearly what the process is. Not all these questions on the form are required, but the more information that you can provide, the better the committee can score the applicant. You're anonymous. The committee does not know the group that it is applying. So it's the process is facilitated through Sarah Nichols with Resource Recycling Systems. Wonderful job on managing this process. And so there's it's an anonymous type of a submittal. And check it out. Scroll down. You're going to see an overview on tons per hour, capacity, the age of the facility, and you know, with the changes in cardboard generation, how we're residentially, we're picking up more cardboard on residential programs, you know, the shift in newspapers, you know, it's really an important component for MRFs to look at their process. This is an excellent opportunity for MRFs to do that. Looking at questions about daily throughput, existing infrastructure with the glass cleaning equipment. And so detail, you're going to ask about detail on your glass cleanup system at the MRF. You know, is there light fraction removal equipment? Is there a trommel? Grayson had a couple of shots of you know, that type of process. Each MRF is different. So, but it gives you, there are enough categories where you'll be able to, you know, really focus in on your MRF, what you have at your MRF. There's a sampling protocol. And so what we're looking at, and Grayson, I know you're going to get into this in greater depth, but there is a protocol, what we want to do, what the committee wants to see at the end of the process when your glass goes through your cleanup system. We want to know the -3/8. We want to know that that weight, and we're looking at a sample process. So you're looking at a hand sort of non-glass residue, NGR. You're removing that. You're removing the -3/8, and so then what you have is three buckets, +3/8 glass, -3/8, and then the non-residue to determine that ratio of those three materials that have been separated through that process. Grayson, I know you've added, I appreciate you adding some visuals to this.
Yeah.
At the
So-
top, and what we have here is just a couple of ways to do this. And Grayson, I'm just going to kind of do a little bit on the top here. The Rumpke at the beneficiation facility in Dayton, Ohio, we have a shaker screen. This is what we use to assess the three different buckets for sampling. The -3/8, the screen at the very top is going to separate, allow the -3/8 to fall through. The falling tray there, the tray at the bottom, we're going to hand sort any ceramics, any non-glass products. Grayson, you want to you've kind of put an interesting thing together here.
Yeah,
Before Grayson does, I just want to tell our audience, what you're seeing here is a real show and tell. This isn't an academic exercise. All these shots are taken and the equipment put together by your speakers. These are the processes that they are using on a regular basis in their operations. So that this is true show and tell.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
this is the full spectrum. So Ben's got a nice setup at Rumpke. There's a big processing plant, so it warrants having something, that's nice like that can stay in one spot. Me as a salesman who travels, and my company's based in Austria, if I got to get samples from a MRF in Phoenix, I'm gonna take them and put them in a plastic bag and bring them back home, and I got to do something with it in my garage. So that screen on the bottom left is something I put together. I went to Home Depot. I bought some chicken wire that was 1/2 inch to 3/8 in the opening. I cut a rectangle out. I bought some PVC pipes and I zip tied it together. And it works just great for me and good for my customers. I take scoops of the material, I lay that at an angle and I dump it on, and I just kind of rub all the fines through. I shake it all up, and then I can dump the coarse on the other side. So it's easier for me to get those weights, and then I have the course. This is all done in my garage. So I do this for any customer that needs me to go and evaluate their MRF stream and figure out what to do. So you can go either way.
It can be fancy or it can be simple or anything in between. And we're certainly open to evaluating applications anywhere on that spectrum.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that for sure, Will, for sure. And to your point, Will, we just we want transparency. And I think we're seeing that a lot of information sharing. I know that your group, Will, you're bringing together a lot of people to share information. And I think that's what I really enjoy about the Glass Recycling Coalition. And so, what happens after that certification process? We're seeing recognition, and I think this next slide, I think this may be the folks from Balcones that this is a great story. This particular project Balcones came in, I think in 2019, Will, and they were certified as a silver certification. And you know, they put together some infrastructure, a new system or an upgrade to a system. And in 2022, they hit gold. That's a great story. Again, you know, Will, you kind of got me thinking about that increased confidence in the recycling infrastructure. These are the kind of stories, the Balcones stories, the certification process. I think that, you know, when GRC puts out the recipients, I think that it really helps solidify that you know, what recyclers are doing. It's real, and it's a recognition on a national scale. So we're bringing best MRF practices to the entire MRF community, to, you know, to encourage other MRFs on upgrades. Well, I don't know if this is, you said this, but I thought that one of the things that you had mentioned, and sometimes when you talk about leaving no MRF left behind, I don't know if that's you, but anyway, I mean, that's really where we are on this. And I think the other thing that I wanted to really emphasize is that, you know, residents want to recycle glass, and it's very important that residents know, you know, the MRF community, the folks in your MRF shed, they want you all to recycle glass. It's an essential component on curbside and drop-off recycling. So it's a great story, and you know, national recognition.
Yeah, if we could back up a couple of slides to the pictures of the sortation process. We do have a question there for both of you, really. Talk about how you're measuring what's in these last two slides. And I mean, we've got the NGR in one and the 3/8 plus in the other, but just talk about how that will translate to the application form.
Good point. Good point. Thank you, Will. You will see, and I want to encourage you just to get on the GRC website, go into the MRF certification process. You will see a tiered process that evaluates the your end product, the plus 3/8. So it evaluates based on the ratio that you develop on the, you know, the contents of the 5-gallon bucket, you know, gross, tear, net. So once you establish that ratio, you'll be able to plug in the, you know, where you are on that process. And it's based on a percentage, you know, an area that ratio will give you.
Thank you, Ben. I'd like to just speak to some in general about the Glass Recycling Coalition. This is your blatant plug or advertisement that goes along with this webinar today. But as what I'd stated earlier, the GRC was formed in 2016. Since that time, working with its membership and with RRS, there's been an awful lot of activities. Generally, there's a full meeting twice a year of the membership. COVID did impact that as far as where we were in person, but that has picked back up, and we started meeting again last year. There's been several articles published out. You can see that in the slide here in Recycling Day, Waste 360, some in Resource Recycling and others, and putting out a lot of information on the issue of how glass works within our recycling system. And the website has got a lot of resources. You saw a couple of the maps. There are more maps and other resources on the GRC website, glassrecycles.org. I'm sorry. And I encourage you to check out that map. And there is a lot of information there on contracts and how glass fits into that and making the contract stronger. So, and I just to reiterate, the coalition really does cover entities along the full range of material, just really from where our materials collected, be it at curb or drop off or commercial and bar and restaurant generation and such as that, all the way through the handling by local governments, the processing in MRFs, beneficiation, and ultimately to the bottle manufacturers, insulation manufacturers that are using the materials coming out of that, and even then the people buying those bottles. We've had call of support from beverage industry, and to because those are the brands that are recognizable on the shelf, and the brands are they're very committed to having recycled content in their packaging, and they're investing in this to move this forward so they for their purposes towards sustainability in their whole operation. So I do encourage you to check out the website in addition to taking a look at the certification program, and hopefully you'll join our list of, I think we've got 13 MRFs now certified. That's 11 companies, but with a couple of duplicate MRFs there. But we see we've got several have achieved gold, and we've got bronze and silver represented as well. We certainly hope to be adding to this number. The committee looks forward to seeing your application and moving forward with your program. We've got just a few more minutes if there are any questions. I haven't seen any come through the chat, but to give you a minute to do that, I'll let our speakers give us just any closing comments you may have. You can go first, Ben.
Thank you, Will. Yeah,
everybody, I've blindsided him on that, so I'm going to ramble for just a minute while he gathers his thoughts. But there you go, Ben.
You're the best. You're the best. You know, I wanted to reiterate, and Grayson, I don't want to take away your thunder, but you know, glass has to be included when you're looking at any kind of diversion. You know, it's an essential commodity. It's a legacy commodity, and glass needs to be looked at as a landfill diversion, and that needs to be factored in how we look at glass. Really everything, but you know, glass. You know, we're looking at a raw material, sand, which, you know, there's just not a lot of very, very flat line on that commodity. And so, but it can be recycled infinitely. And, you know, glass is such a neat package. And I want to really empower the residents in MRF sheds, that they have a voice, that you know, they need to let their MRF operators know that they want to recycle glass.
Thank you, Ben. Grace, I'm going to give you just a moment to think more, because we have generated some questions here for both of you.
Right now.
And these questions go from easy to medium to difficult. Let's start off. The question is, how do we determine the different levels of bronze, silver, and gold? And gentlemen, who wants to talk in? There is a points system on the application, or on the scoring of the application, and it just, as you fill out that application, we will be taking that, applying points to each of those questions, and then there is certain scores for each of those. Ben or Grayson, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
No, the biggest determining factors are, you know, the quality of your glass at the end of the day. But you'll see on the questionnaire that there's several other factors that we ask you, and each of those carry a certain weight. So it's possible that a MRF, for example, based on their glass quality alone, would be a bronze, but there's other factors of the MRF that could potentially bump it up to a silver. So it all depends on how you fill out the application and what your material looks like.
And
Thank you, Greg.
easily accessible, that application. I mean, you can get on it right now and just, see how that goes.
One question, what about the labels that are stuck to bottles? Is that considered part of the glass, or is that NGR? Because it's not going to separate out with our mechanism that we're demonstrated.
Correct. So in my opinion, and I'll let Ben say something afterwards, but in my opinion, if the bottle has a label on it, it should not count as NGR. It should count as glass. And I say that because if you're sending your MRF glass to a beneficiation plant, 9 times out of 10, they're going to have a drying system there. And drying systems are hot and the material moves through it. So the labels come off. They kind of disintegrate off of the glass. And then you have, the piece of bottle that's clean. So because of that factor, I see it not as an NGR. It's just a piece of glass that has something on it. And then when it gets further processed down the line, it's considered glass at the end of the day.
Yeah, completely agree, Grayson. Yes, what we're looking for on the non-glass material, we're looking at metals, we're looking at plastics, those types of things. Completely agree.
Yeah. And I mean, in this, the samples are separated into 3/8 plus, 3/8 minus, and in NGR, then the percentage is determined by weight, and the label on the pieces of glass that's there isn't really going to appreciably have any effect on changing that percentage. So it's not going to affect the score. This one may be harder to do, but it is a good question. Looking at what does it cost for MRF upgrades to move from one certification to another?
So, well, the easy answer is that it all depends on what your MRF looks like and what your material looks like and what you have to do to it. Sometimes the material coming out of the glass stream of a MRF is pretty clean. So all you need is some sort of air system to suck out lights, and then you have a higher certification level. That's relatively inexpensive. But if it's an older MRF and let's say the glass breaker is not super efficient and it's got a lot of heavier paper in there and pieces of plastic, it could be a little more costly to develop some sort of system to purify the glass further. So it's a case-by-case basis. Could be a really easy fix with the fan or something, or it could be, you got to install a screen and a zigzag, and that could cost, somewhere in the 6 figures easily.
Yeah, Grayson, to your point about each MRF having, different structure in terms of the equipment, on site. I think that, it's a case by case, but I'm seeing in the business, and I know you all do as well, this, not only glass, but every commodity, we're looking Rumpke, and I know that, the Waste Management, Republics, really taking a hard look on how materials are being processed. I mean, the percentages on materials has changed so dramatically with fiber that it's and I think it's a good, it's an important aspect to take a look at that. Will, on Glass Recycling Coalition website, you made a good point about what's out there. I did see that with each state, the GRC has provided the a grant opportunity, and a lot of that's through the DNRs of the states. But I really want to encourage people that want to do an upgrade. Take a look to see what's out there. I think that there's a lot of grant opportunities.
Well, an organization that grew out of the GRC is the Glass Recycling Foundation, which has made several grants supporting collection and some for infrastructure as well. So there is some funding available. Clearly, there's not enough to fix everybody's program to achieve goal, but that there are funding mechanisms out there to help offset some of these costs. And clearly, by producing better product, there is a positive return on the revenue to the facility as well, and the opportunity for reduced costs in the operation. But again, all of that's going to be specific to every MRF, because the mix is going to be the same, or it's going to be different, and the infrastructure that they're working with within the facility is going to be different. Grayson, I'll give you the chance to wrap up if you'd like.
Yeah, well, I see one more question just came in. Does the GRC provide free technical assistance to assess the MRF's needs? I think there's some tools available on the website, but regardless of what's available on the website, all of the equipment manufacturers that are part of the GRC would, obviously I would do it for free. I would take a look at your material and kind of assess what your needs are, as well as all the other guys, Machine X and Van Dyke and CP Group and BHS. All of the equipment manufacturers that are involved in GRC will take a look at your material to tell you what you need. But if that is the last question, yeah, just to wrap it up, the GRC is a great tool. We're trying to encourage every MRF across the nation that accepts glass to get certified and get that recognition that you deserve, as well as spread the word to all the MRFs that currently are not accepting glass and figuring out what we can do to get you to be part of the team here. Glass is not going away anytime soon. There's just too much of it, and there's a need for it in certain applications. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you very much, Grayson and Ben. I do extend my appreciation to you for the work you put in to prepare for this, and our appreciation for the GRC, the work that they do, work that RRS does to back it up, and shout out to Sarah Nichols, who guides this project. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, thanks everyone. We'll go ahead and sign off.